Hi, I'm Quinn and I'm autistic. Welcome to Autistic. Last time I asked the question, can you be autistic and not know it? This time I'd like to continue the stories I started in that video of two autists going through life without actually knowing they're autistic. If you'd like to catch up with their childhoods and the background to the choices made in putting their stories together, then please watch the first part, which is linked up here and in the description. If you want to leave a comment on this video, I'd strongly recommend getting up to speed first. When we left, Lenny and Tom, they were aged 11 and about to make the transition from primary school to secondary, or in American terms, elementary school to middle school. Both boys were extremely hopeful that the move to big school would mark a new chapter of their lives. Lenny thought that he might finally get the kind of education he'd always expected. He'd get the chance to flex his academic muscles a bit. Primary school was about the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic and hopscotch. Secondary school was where the real learning would start. For Tom, it signalled a new start socially. He so wanted to be liked and trusted, but thanks to having been labelled as a slow learner and a difficult child, he'd instead been bullied by other pupils and treated as little more than a frustration by his teachers. A fresh start in a new school would allow him to start new relationships free of the baggage of the last few years. Lenny was an educational enigma as far as his old teachers had been concerned. Whilst he'd found himself in trouble on numerous occasions, it was mainly for asking awkward questions, aka being disruptive, or for being interested in aspects of school subjects either not in the curriculum or considered too advanced for a child of his age. Lenny's professional parents had grown tired of school reports full of comments about wasted potential and his unwillingness to apply himself, so they chose to send him to a private school for his secondary education. Maybe the strict discipline would do him some good. Lenny himself wasn't keen on the idea. The school they wanted him to go to was boys only, and they made a very big deal about their sporting prowess, which put Lenny off completely. He'd never enjoyed competitive games, and really couldn't understand why people would spend hours in the cold and wet to watch a football match, let alone run around in the mud as players. But he didn't get a choice in the matter. Lenny's dad had gained a small advantage in his early days in the workplace thanks to the school he had gone to, and he wanted his son to enjoy at least the same advantages as he had. So, on a brisk September morning, he was dropped off at the school gates in his stiff, unforgiving uniform with a mix of anticipation and dread. The uniform was driving him nuts already. In primary school, he'd worn polo shirts with the school's name embroidered on the breast, but the new school was far more formal. As soon as he got inside the school gates, he loosened his tie and undid his top button. How did his dad manage to work his whole day with one of these round his neck, he wondered. Tom had enjoyed a fantastic summer. He loved being outdoors and would spend long afternoons in the park just down the road from him. Every day, once lunch was over, he'd sling his backpack over his shoulder and ride his bike down there, always rolling back in at 5 p.m, ready for dinner. Dad would ask him what he got up to as they ate their meals, and Tom would tell him about his friends down at the park. There was Peter, who wanted to be a journalist when he grew up, Tony, whose dad was an engineer, and Bruce, who was big and tough but was always in trouble for ripping his trousers. Mum suggested he invite some of his friends over to play. Maybe they could come home after the park one day and join them for dinner. No, they weren't allowed, Tom said. What, all of them? Dad asked. Yes, Tom replied. They've got very strict parents. Come September, Tom was getting excited for his new school. It was a fresh start with new teachers and new kids. He'd be able to leave his reputation as the slow, difficult kid behind him and be someone else. He knew he'd still find it difficult to read in class with all the distractions he'd have around him, but he'd been practising over the summer by reading with the radio on when Mum and Dad weren't around. He thought he'd do better this time, both in the class and with his peers. Lenny's first day was a revelation at first. After the big assembly in the main hall, they were split up into 3 classroom groups, assigned houses that were basically the teams they would use at school sports days, and given a heap of new stationery. Lenny liked stationery. One year, when he was about 6 years old and all his contemporaries were getting action figures, transforming toys and football boots for Christmas, he'd asked for office stuff. He wanted spiral-bound notepads, highlighters, pencils, erasers, paper clips and a fountain pen. Instead, he got a games console, which had lain more or less unused under the TV in the living room since. After he'd labelled all his new stationery and filled out his new timetable, his form group went on a tour of the school. The science labs were fascinating, with little sinks and Bunsen burners on every bench. The school had its own computer lab too, which was still a new thing at the time, and he marvelled at the ranks of BBC computers, each with its own floppy disk drive. Never had he seen so many computers in one place. He hadn't seen computer lessons on his timetable, though. "Sir, when do we get to use the computers?" he asked. "Who said that?" snapped the teacher. "I did. When are the computer lessons, sir?" "Why didn't you put your hand up? What's your name?" "It's Lenny, sir." "I asked for your name, not what your mummy calls you. What is your family name?" Lenny looked at him blankly, puzzled at what was going on. "Your surname, boy. Your second name. What is the name at the end that you share with your parents? When I have to call them in because you're in trouble, I will address them as Mr. or Mrs. something. What is that something?" "I'm Lenny Dent." "So it's Dent then. That is your name, not Benny. The rest of this rabble can call you what they want. I'm sure they'll think of something imaginative." Lenny stood there, open-mouthed for a while. He wanted to correct the teacher to say he wasn't called Benny, but he could already hear the other boys sniggering. Why had his new teacher been so hostile to him? Why the insistence on calling him Dent? And why did he seem so confident that Lenny would get in trouble? "Shut your mouth, boy. You're not catching flies. And do your tie up. You look like a tramp. Now, follow me, boys. We're going to take a look at the gym." The boys started filing past, following their tutor, and one whispered into his ear, "Dozy Dent." Tom's first day was much better than Lenny's. Several people from his old school had come here too, but thankfully very few of the bullies who'd given him a hard time in the last one. He'd have a chance at that fresh start after all. The school was huge. Over 1,000 pupils from all over the town. Tom had grown up in a quiet suburb, but the school was nearer the centre of town. It was a much broader mix of people than he was used to. 11-year-old first years like him shared the facility with 18-year-old sixth formers who didn't have to wear a uniform like the rest of them. They looked so cool. He was sure he was going to like it here. There was so much more to do and so many people to meet. No way would he have the same problems as before. If someone picked on him, there would be other people to make friends with. Maybe some real friends this time. He was still surprised his parents had believed him about his friends from the park. At the beginning of the summer, he'd found a huge box of old comics bundled up outside someone's house ready for the bin, and Peter Parker, Tony Stark, and Bruce Banner had been his constant companions as he'd sat reading their adventures in his favourite quiet spot in the park all summer. He knew he couldn't tell his dad that, though. Comics were for losers and weirdos, according to him. When the afternoon came round, he had his first proper lesson. He was scheduled for French as his first subject. The classroom was bedecked with posters all round. There were posters of French phrases and vocabulary, posters from holiday resorts on the Riviera, and a collage of adverts from French magazines. In their first lesson, Madame Frost taught them how to introduce themselves. Je m'appelle Tom. Je suis un garçon, he recited when it came to his turn. Wonderful pronunciation, Tom, commented Madame Frost, gently clapping her hands. Do you speak any French already? He shook his head. No. Have you been to France on holiday then? Again he shook his head. Well, you must have Gallic blood flowing through your veins. You sound like a native. It was the first time a teacher had been pleased with him in as long as he could remember. Yes, this was going to be better than primary school. Much better. And so we leave our two young, undiagnosed autists once more. Their first days at secondary school were very different, but neither of them had a clue what the next few years would bring. We'll continue our journey through their school years towards early adulthood next week. But for now, thank you for watching. In the coming weeks, you'll see some changes to Autistic. There's going to be updates to the website, new designs going up on the merch store, and there's already 2 new tiers on Patreon for those who've asked to contribute a little more to the channel's future. I'd be so grateful if you leave a like, subscribe to the channel and leave comments. It really does help the channel get noticed, especially when you link the videos from your social media. So please help this channel to keep growing. And if you'd like to be a supporter on Patreon or treat yourself to some Autistic merch, you'll find links in the description.